Welcome all to the session on DS Digital Private Limited. We have a content called Destination Success. So today we are going to do how to teach maths using the digital content presented by DS Destination Success. So here is my PPT. If we go through this, the first slide that you see has the components of planning the class sessions. So as a teacher, we do a lot of preparations before we enter the class, and we do our concept teaching. We are using various different teaching strategies. So what all preparation is required? So you can see on the screen, we have planning for the class session. We start with the starter activity. Then we have present a new information. The third stage that we do is the student process information. The fourth stage is the demonstrate learning, and the fifth stage is the review. Now we will do all this in detail. So what do we have in starter? As a teacher, I plan a starter activity, maybe a hook, so that I inculcate the interest of the student into the topic that I am going to teach. Maybe we take an example of integers. So in class 6, integers are taught in the first time, and they are not aware of negative numbers. They only know number 55, 5055, 6075, but they don't know there is -5 also. So when we are teaching them the concept for the first time, we have to have a foundation for the student, so that first of all the interest is inculcated into the student. Second, the concept becomes easy for the student to understand. You have a real life connectivity, and then you have a hands-on activity design. So always start a new concept with these starters. If it is not a new concept, if it is an old concept which the children already know, we should again start the session with some kind of a recapitulation activity, because the retention of the student is for the whole group is not that sharp. So to understand the concept before you go to a difficult stage of the concept, it is good that we plan a startup activity or a recapitulation activity. The second stage that we have is present a new information. Now we should keep in mind, whenever we are presenting a new information, it has to be for 15 minutes. Design your lesson that for 15 minutes is your teaching time, actual concept teaching time for 15 minutes, because it has been scientifically proved that the student has a retention of 15 minutes only. If you do your lessons or your concepts more than 15 minutes, then they are disinterested into the concept. They don't listen to the teachers at all. So planning is very important. So 5 minutes for startups, 15 minutes is for presenting new information. Then we give some time to the student to process information. As a teacher, I have delivered my concept either my lecture way or through Destination Success content, digital pedagogy content, or through activity, hands-on activity. We have to give student process time for the information to be absorbed into their brains. So what we do here is we again give them some time, some questions, some worksheets, some activity to do, and we give them some wait time so that they absorb the information, and then they are able to give you the solution. Third is the demonstrate learning. In demonstrate learning, we can take activities like lab activities in case of maths. We can take paper fold activities. NCERT always tells us to do some paper folding activity for the concept, because it is when the motor skills and when with the folding of the papers they do the concept, they understand it better. Then we have the review. Review can be in the form of the assessments, can be in the form of a questioning, can be in the form of a project work. So when we do a review, as a teacher, I know whether my student have understood the concept or no, or do I have to reteach the concept in a different way, or I move to a hard topic of the concept. So this is the entire planning session that we do for our teachers, for our students when they are going through the concept. Now here we have the starter. Now just see to this slide very carefully. In starter we have a recap, we have a hook, and we have a learning outcomes. So when I say recap, Recap is done in two ways. So we have teacher-led and we have student-led. In teacher-led, teachers take the front seat. Okay, she recapitulates the whole concept, maybe the steps for the solution of a problem, maybe the steps for the construction of a diagram, maybe a recapitulation of various formulas being taught. So it's a teacher-led. Teachers take the front seat. The second recapitulation can be through student-led. So when I say through student-led, in this case students take a lead. Teacher is as a facilitator, students take a lead. Now in this case we can have teaching strategies like questioning. Students ask questions and the fellow students give the answers, or student asks questions to the teacher and teacher gives the answers. Okay. The second can be a role play by the students. Third can be any model that they prepare, they are explaining. This technique is called show and tell technique. So there are various ways of teacher-led and student-led recapitulation. The next one that we have is the hook. Okay. Now hook is again something when children are interested in the concept, they understand it in a better way, they listen to the teachers, they see the visuals if it's a visual concept, and then they perform themselves. So we have an experiment, we have demos, we have visual concept for hook. Then we have learning outcomes. In learning outcomes, what is expected out of the child for the learning objective of that chapter? Whether we have achieved that learning outcomes. So there has to be an outline. So outline can include how the teacher is going to teach the concept. While she is teaching the concept, she has to give the feedback to the student for their understanding. Now these feedback has to be a constructive feedback. So this is the entire loop of starters. Now next we go to presenting new information. So when we present new information, first of all, time is very important. As I told you, any new concept being taught 15 minutes for one period. The second is the purpose. What I am going to explain into the concept, whether it is addition of integers, whether it is subtraction of integers or multiplication of integers. So if I am doing multiplication of integers, maybe I am doing grouping of additions also. So maybe I am revisiting my addition concept also. So the purpose should be very clear with the teacher before they start any concept teaching with the students. What all visual aids, what all lecture methods, what all textbook materials, what all downloaded materials required, teacher should be prepared with those material before she teach the concept. And then third is the means. Okay, how I am going to present the concept. Maybe some concepts visually you need a visual aid because you can teach the concept visually very well. So we have that mean. Maybe some concept by chalk and draw method. Okay. So I have my board, I draw the figure with the help of the chalk or the white marker and I explain it to my students in my own way. So that is your traditional way of teaching. I may also look into some kind of animations where we have a scenario for some real life activity. Through that real life activity I am teaching a concept, and when I am teaching a concept, animation helps me to do it in a step by step manner. So these are also various kind of means. So presenting a new information again needs some kind of preparations, and DS Digital Destination Success content helps the teacher, supports the teachers in all the parameters required for presenting new information. Then we have student activity, which is the processing information. Student take some time to register into their brain. So if I am teaching my concept through lecture way, through visual concept, and I blend it together, that is the most useful way of processing information by the students, because they have heard you, they have seen you doing the problem statement, and now visually they connect what you have done. So e-content used for 5 minutes will help you to get your student into the concept understanding and register into their brain fully. So if I have a student of various wavelength into my classrooms. Okay, so we have less proficient child, we have proficient child, and we have more proficient child. This e-learning content presented by Destination Success will help even your less proficient child to come to the mark of proficient child. So in this case, when we say processing information, we don't mean that we are going to assess or evaluate the child. Every time you don't need to assess or evaluate the child for processing information. It can be a casual way of asking question. It can be a surprise test in a very short form. It can be just one problem statement or one exercise given for simplification to be done by the student. So it's not assessment. The purpose is I am not going to assess the child. I am just helping him to understand the concept and just to review where he has gone wrong and where I or he has to work collectively. Now this can also be through individual work, this can be through pair work, it can be grouping of 4, 5 or 6, or it can be whole class activity. So depends on the topic, depends on the time, depends on the teacher what she choose, but collaboration is very, very important. See teachers, it is very important for us to understand that understanding of the concept, learning of the concept, reinforcement of the concept, recapitulation of the concept is better done is by collaboration. When you leave a child alone to do some problem statement, for example, the child will not be able to do, he may feel scared. He may have some fear of not knowing the concept, but when you collaborate your students peer group together, then the learning takes place faster and the learning which is done is rooted to his brain. So it is important to do some kind of collaboration activity. Then we have teachers wrap up. It is important for student activity processing information that teachers wrap up at the end. Teacher may not start with the with the startup activity. Teacher may not be with the students when they are doing their work, but teacher should summarize the entire concept at the end of the class. So 5 minutes wrap up is very important. Before you leave the room, it is important for a teacher to wrap up the activity. So what do we have? Reading with a purpose and getting student to highlight the relevant details. So whatever we have done, the teacher recapitulated with the help of students and students highlight the relevant details. It is important that students' involvement is there when the teacher wrap up. Then we have here is another stage where is demonstrated learning. In demonstrate learning, what do we have? We give some tasks to the students. So when we give some tasks, it is important for teacher to give some instructions. Why instructions? Because you are directing your children to what is expected out of this task. This saves time. Students are more focused, and as a teacher, I also complete my task on time. I give a reference to the student why this task is important, so they are also glued to doing the task. And the outcome has to be 100% successful. Okay, so you will see the difference when you give them the task with proper instructions, and you will see the outcome is also achieved. The last stage that we have discussed in session planning is the review. So when we say review, it is the LO achieved plus LO revisited. Okay, review doesn't mean I just ask question to my students and students give me the answer and then I find who all did not give me. That is not the task of the teacher. A teacher, a good progressive teacher will ask question to the students. They may or may not answer you properly, they may or may not be correct, but for me that is very important, and then I could see how much LO has been achieved and how much LO I have to revisit. This is the whole session planning that we have in our teaching process. The last slide that we have is taking it forward. So when I say taking it forward, it means concept being taught, concept being reinforced, concept being recapitulated. And now is the time where I am now assessing my children with the help of some worksheets, some assignments. So if I give them grades, so it becomes my test paper. If I don't grade them, it becomes a practice sheets. So it is important in the end to give some sort of assignments so that I as a teacher or students know how much of the concept they have understood, whether they have to revisit the concept or it has been understood by them completely. Okay. Thank you.